This episode of the Off-Road Podcast is sponsored by Colby Valve.
Off-Road Podcast, episode 473, Camp Trip Stories.
Tonight, Aaron and Coy goes a test run, and Death chases after Ben.
Wow. You forgot the part where it says Aaron tests a prototype. It says it right there in the show notes.
No, it does not, for sure.
Could you not hear the typing right now?
I could see the typing. I even reminded you 45 minutes ago. Yeah, slide that mouse.
Yeah.
Tonight, Aaron tests his prototype. Coy goes on a test run, and Death chases after Ben.
Welcome to the Off-Road Podcast, the podcast about everything off-road. We cover the news, review products, and interview people in the off-road industry. Your hosts tonight are Aaron, Coy, my name is Ben, and welcome to the show. Well, guys, how's it going?
Doing good.
Not bad myself.
Good.
So what's this prototype you're testing, or can you not say?
Well, I had to sign an NDA, which I don't know what that stands for, but something like non-disclosure agreement or something like that, saying that I can't talk about it. So I called him up and said, hey, I would like to talk about this on the podcast. How much can I say? He's like, well, not very much. I technically may or may not have actually signed that NDA. I don't know if they can read my handwriting. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it. So Warren called me up. They're like, hey, we got some prototyping testing to do again. Can you come out? Because I tested some stuff for them before. And just so you know, you have to be in with Warren to go do this testing. This isn't just for anybody. And I'm not saying that to sound hoity-toity. So don't call Warren and say, hey, can I come test stuff for you? They will dismiss knowing anything about it. It's like Area 51. Yeah, so they had me out.
Bob Lazar over here.
Yeah. So they had me out testing a prototype winch. All I'm going to tell you is that it had synthetic rope on it, and you pushed buttons and it went in and out. That's all I'm going to say. Can't say anymore.
Amazing.
Lips are sealed.
I can't wait for you to tell us all about it in the middle of the Moab trip. When there's 9 you'll have all these guys like, yeah, they're just eating out of the palm of your hand. You won't be able to hold it back.
I'll be seven beers in and just won't be able to keep my lips closed.
2.5.
One.
You say I'm a lightweight.
I mean, you don't drink a lot. It's likely that you won't.
I don't think I've ever seen Aaron drink any alcohol. So
yeah, it's touched my lips, but it's been more than half of my life ago. So besides doing
list, I've touched your lips before sooner than liquor has in the last 10 years.
That's
take from that what you will.
That's very true. Besides doing some prototype winch testing, I cut some holes in the frame of my Nissan. So here's a couple pictures. You can see that's a 1/2-inch hole saw, and you can just barely see poking in there. There's a nut, and here's the other side. I had to actually I used a Sawzall to notch that corner to get the winch. No, sorry, the wrench, the prototype wrench in there. So what was in there were these nuts. I got a picture of it in my hand here. They're a square nut, and they were tack welded in all 4 corners. Well, 2 out of 4 of those had broken free, and I'm going to switch back to these photos. That's the very front of my frame horn, and what those bolts go in from the bottom, and they hold the tow hook and hold the front bumper on, or that's part of what holds the front bumper on. So I need to do something about it. And I had these really cool recovery points that I bought. Oh man, I'm going to be a little bit embarrassed because this is worse than anything Ben has ever done. I think I've had these parts for 8 years, and I finally installed them.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm proud of you.
So finally got around to it. So, this picture here. So circled in red on the left, you can see the factory snaggle tooth tow hook, and on the right is one of those recovery points. And in this picture here, you can see those recovery points with a couple 5/8 shackles that are rated for 4 3/4 ton, made in America Campbell bow shackles. So
You need some more of those?
I don't think so, because I just rarely use them. And when I put these in, I took a screwdriver and I cranked them in hard, so nobody's stealing these. They're not going to fall off. In fact, I should have just put some red Loctite on it while I'm at it. My plan is for them just to hang out there for the rest of their lives. So
There's going to be a camp trip someday where I take those off just because you said that.
I mean, you can do it. Yeah, you can do it if you stick a screwdriver there and reef on it. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to roll up with Crescent wrench and pop those off, and then I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, well, look, you said they'd never fall off. Good thing. And then,
I can actually foresee you pulling these out because you're going to be driving down the trail and they're going to be like clang, 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 clang.
And they may get annoying. We'll find out. So we'll see. Raggle Fraggle in the comments said, did my ultra hook come in? It has not, and I really hope it does before the Moab trip in a week and a half. So I'd love to get that ultra hook on so I can be ultra awesome on the trail. Everybody's going to be ultra envious of me. So, other than that, my truck is 98% put back together. Essentially, I just have to throw the front tires on and then tighten the lug nuts all the way around. But I have a friend making me a skid plate. My factory radiator skid plate, which I'm on the second one, and it's a sheet metal thing, is missing. It fell off a year ago when Coy and I were wheeling at China Hat. Not China Hat. Where were we wheeling at, Coy?
we're at Klein Butte. I actually almost
Klein
downloaded
Butte.
that picture for the segment, but I didn't. So,
well, I think it fell off then, but it came home with me. But I've looked all over the farm for it. I can't find it in any of the outbuildings. I have no idea where it's at. So I asked a buddy who works in a fab shop to bend one up. He's got a press that's, I don't know, it's like an 80-ton press, and he said it'll easily fold metal for me. So I asked for an 1/8 inch thick mild steel skid plate with some wings on it for rigidity. So he's bending that up tomorrow.
in the comments, Raggle Fraggle asked, wouldn't the cotter pin castle nut combo be more reliable? I'm assuming he's talking about the bow shackles or clevises or whatever we're calling them these days.
I would assume so.
Probably, but the ones that aren't like that are usually freer on job sites and things. So that's what people get times.
I bought these at a rigging store up in Tacoma. But
you paid for bow shackles?
Yes.
That's
yes,
gross.
I did.
You disgusting.
I do have some of the bow shackles that have the nut and the cotter pin hole, but they are, I think they're only 1/2 inch. They're not the 5/8, and the holes on these are just a hair over 5/8, and I wouldn't want to.
You've never just walked through a Home Depot parking lot and just taken off 10, 12 off of random.
All the
overland builds, just like, oh, that's a nice bow shot. Oh, that one has the rubber isolator, and just kind of pick what you want, load up your
Overland
truck.
Depot would have lots of those too.
I always go to Overland Depot
for your bow shackles.
Yeah, to free up some recovery gear. Sometimes there'll be ropes hanging off the back, like all kinds of cool stuff. I've got some, like 3 trash
shovels, shovels,
several trash roofs. I got one of those toothy beaver ones. Yeah, they just leave them outside near. Yeah.
You ever fill your gas tank with one of those weird flat gas cans that they mount to the side?
I don't use Rotopacks even if there's free gas. Like if I'm using a Rotopack, it's to keep me from walking. That's the only reason I'm using a Rotopack.
I thought you could drive over them, so I would use it for bridging maybe, but that would be about it.
I think they're better at bridging than holding liquids, but
holding liquid.
They're great for holding liquor.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll come up on this episode. Other than that, that's about it. I haven't stolen any bow shackles or anything this week, so been pretty busy. How about you, Ben? No, Coy. Ben's going to take a while. I figure Coy will be quick. Let's just rip that out.
Who told you that? So I went camping, not the cool kind of camping. I mean, it was still good camping, but I do a family reunion camp trip. It's basically my dad, my stepmom, brothers, sisters, and all the raggle snaggle strays that we've adopted as family members. You know, the couple families that aren't blood related, but they come to the family reunions, you know. So we all went and camped out at Lake Billy Chinook. The water was like high algae warning, toxic, not supposed to be in it. There were plenty of people boating and wakeboarding. Seen somebody jumping off the bridge and stuff. So I even waited to see if he came back up. He didn't.
Somebody legit drowned at Hag Lake, which is not far from my house, because they were jumping off of a thing that they weren't supposed to be jumping off of, and he gone.
Hag Lake is like, you can recreationally go watch people drown there. It's insane.
It's like, I bet you there's got to be 4 drownings a year at Hag Lake. It's crazy. I think it's just too close to town.
There's like 4 drownings a year, but a lot of times at least one of those drownings is 3 people at once. Like, it's like a lot of times there's twofers and stuff. It's insane.
Twofers. Whoa.
No, there was a year 3 people drowned because like one went in after the other. It was just like a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 14-year-old, and they all, I think a mom or a grandma or somebody drowned.
Whoa. Wow. Well, cheer us up, Coy. How can we turn this around so it's not all about children dying?
Well, I was at Lake Billy Chinook, and as far as I'm concerned, little to no children died. We just camped, kind of hung out, wasn't anything special. We went farther upstream to where the lake was less green, did some swimming and stuff, and then came back. And right as we got back, I was going to make a bunch of taco fixins, and there was supposed to be like a little wind and maybe some lightning, like some rain. The wind starts picking up, and it might be the strongest wind I've ever experienced. I can think of
strongest wind you've ever passed.
It was crazy. I think there were some times at the coast where it might have been stronger, and we were camped kind of on this bluff with another cliff behind us. So I think it was kind of exaggerating it, because like we were like overlooking the lake, but then there was probably a 300 feet cliff 300 feet behind us, just like a mesa sticking out. You know, those like 10 by 10 pop-up tents. My dad has like he got like a commercial one that you use for like vendors. It's really heavy duty and has like the really pointy top and stuff. There was 3 of us hanging on to it, and like I wasn't certain that we could keep it there. All the dirt and sand I had to turn my head away. It was like sandblasting my face. It was painful.
That's what happened.
Well, actually kind of cleared up my pores a little bit, I think. But it's like hitting the back of my legs. It was incredibly painful. It was intense. Like, all these tents are falling down. The people camping next to us were a lot younger crowd, and they were out on the lake partying. They'd come back about 7. I think they'd take a quick nap and then turn their radio on at about 8:30 and then party down.
Oh no.
And so as soon as the wind event stopped, I was like, let's go over and thrash the rest of their tents, flip over some picnic tables when we get back, just be like, man, the wind was crazy.
Eric wants to know if it was a microburst.
Could have been. I'm not a weatherman. Like, I don't know what you want me to answer, Eric. What I do know is when some of the people in the other campsites, it was a group campsite area, so there's 3 or 4 big groups. I went into the bathroom later and was using the bathroom, hear people's conversations from outside the bathroom.
Did you have a microburst in the bathroom?
There was nothing micro about me in the bathroom. In the bedroom, yes. The bathroom, no. Anyways, some of those people, the people that were boaters, I just heard some guy, and he's like, I was out there and I thought I was Captain Ahab. He's talking about how insane.
That's awesome.
I'm in there pooping alone and bursting it. I had like a conniption laughing at his Captain Ahab. Then like some lightning and rain happened, and I have a lightning picture. If you want to grab that, Ben, it should be right before my tree. Yeah. So look how pretty that water is. It's nice.
That's pretty green. It's pretty green is how pretty
yeah.
it is.
Green.
And that was a lightning. It was a pretty good lightning storm going on. So, and then it
Yeah.
passed. We went to the Crawdad Festival in Culver. It's a big deal, real big deal. Town of 2,000, I think, puts on their Crawdad Festival. There's a dude running around in a Crawdad suit. They sell crawdads for like $30 a pound. Bunch of little
That
vendors.
seems like more than lobster.
Probably. Think about it. You catch one lobster, it's the size of your forearm. You got to catch 4,000 crawdads to make a pound. It's way more work.
Yeah, but like I would think that lobster probably tastes better than crawdads.
I don't think so. You get more sauce with
know.
The crawdad. You get more Cajun per ounce. You know.
It's got
Raggle
more surface
Fraggle.
area.
I'm assuming loves crawdads because he just is screaming in the comments. Did someone say crawdads? Yeah, a bunch of the icky fish. And then I worked on the trailer this last weekend and got it what appears to be roadworthy. Knock on wood. I have the sweet my ramps double as ramps to walk into it. I have they pin down. Oh,
that is pretty cool.
Says he's Cajun. What does that even mean? Just you're from Louisiana or something? I don't really know.
I think that just means he has red hair. I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was like a certain part of the South made you Cajun or something. Whatever they do those, any place where they do seafood boils in a big cast iron pot. If you're in that
makes
area.
you Cajun.
Yeah, where they have the seasoning that's salt and pepper mixed together, Creole, and they call it Creole or whatever.
That's the seasoning.
That's Creole seasoning is the most confusing thing to me. I'm like, it's really just salt and pepper. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. So that's kind of what I got going on. Everything's on there.
That looks good. It looks pretty solid.
What's in the back of your truck in this photo?
There's a Ford F550 parked behind my truck, and those are utility boxes.
I know. I just thought it was like quite the angle when I first saw it. I'm like, what are you hauling?
I mean, there's gonna be a massive cabinet smoker in the back of that truck when I take off. Like, I just haven't put it in.
I can't wait.
I spent the weekend doing a lot of food prep. I have like 9 pounds of pulled pork.
If this was Raggle Fraggle setup in SnowRunner, he'd have 2 more FJs stacked on top of each other.
2 more FJs
Yeah.
and a small load of logs on each roof rack. I think thanks you, Raggle Fraggle, say that's the thing. I think it is. I've actually the sleeper flatbed setup is not something I clearly invented, but when I was a pretty young man, 19 or so, there was this old guy that raced a Datsun. It was a Datsun like 210. He called it it was a Japanese one. It was a Sunny. And he built an even more hillbilly version of that. It was like the coffin sleeper that's, I don't know if I could get in it. They're 32 inches wide max. They're tiny.
Oh yeah.
Wow. And he built one like that, and I always thought it was super cool. And like, man, that would be the coolest for hauling and going and stuff. And I always said I was going to build one. And now at just shy of 40 years old, I've came true to my word, and I built my own.
Life is complete. Have you seen those ones like back in the 90s that would go in the bed of your pickup truck? And it was like a little sleeper thing, and it would be cab height.
Yes. Okay,
so essentially it's like a park bench width, and that's what and it's a door, and you just climb into it and sleep, and that's
so because my truck is a 95 OBS, it is period correct for that unit, and I've come across several of those, and I want to get it just because like it has the right look. You know, it'd be nice to store stuff. People want like $1,000 for this. It's literally 32 inches. They're definitely not 3 feet. They're smaller than 3 feet. And they have a little storage underneath, and then they have a seal that goes around the back window, and then you're supposed to like crawl from the back window in those things usually. Like,
ain't no way you are.
Yeah, some of them do drop into the bed, and they have a door and a little.
I've seen the ones with the door too. Yeah, but it's like talk about a coffin.
The most like reasonable thing I've seen people, their dog hangs out in there, and it can jump in the cab and like get scratched and then hang out back there. And it seems reasonable, but other than that, I don't know what they're for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw one of those on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, "Oh, those are a lot more common than I thought." In the sleeper cabs, I was like, "Oh," and then that was after I saw your pictures, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of want it," and I'm like, "I don't have a trailer for it, so too bad." So
Yeah, definitely have to have a trailer to put it on.
yeah, definitely. So I ended up taking the 4Runner to Yellowstone. All I had to do is fix that broken brake line, which it turned out it wasn't my braided line. It was the hard line that comes off the caliper. The bolt that came loose that secures the soft line, I guess from it flexing around, caused whatever weakness was left in the little S curved. It's like an 8-inch piece of hard line. So I just ended up getting a new hard line, bending it in the proper shape, and throwing it on. Quick, easy fix. And then the rattling noise was my rear, not my main skid plate. It was the tube or one bolt on the back corner of my transmission skid plate was loose. And when I'd be turning and stuff, it would cause it to rattle. So all I had to do was tighten that down. So quick, easy fix to get the 4Runner ready. Took it to Yellowstone, stopped at Ringing Rocks along the way. Got to go down the trail. Kids had fun. It's always a blast going to Ringing Rocks. It's just right outside Whitehall, Montana. 4Runner did great going up there. No problems. I got 14.5 miles per gallon driving to Yellowstone.
That tune made a big difference, huh?
It made a world of a difference. Like I was trying to watch my speed, my RPMs, and keep them down, and I was able to get up to 75 and keep it about 2K and keep my RPMs down, because when I was in the park, I saw I was getting close to 17 miles per gallon. And because the speed limit at max is 40.
Which is this on old tires?
This is on my Patagucci's, which were really great. So much so that on my I guess I wanted to talk about Yellowstone for a quick second before I jump into that. Is I found a dirt road in Yellowstone. It's probably the only dirt road. It's like a 5-mile scenic trail, and it's just a dirt road. I saw a pronghorn. We saw a black bear, and on the way to that trail, we saw a moose and its baby. So that was pretty cool. That was the two things I wanted to see. I wanted to see a bear in the wild at Yellowstone, and I wanted to see a moose. So
Man, both you and Coy have like fulfilled life dreams.
I
Coy's
was
got a
just
sleeper cab on a trailer. Ben is seeing wild animals. Like your guys' life are fulfilled.
yeah, it was just my mission for that trip. We've wanted to see a moose in the wild forever, and I drive through the areas where they're at, and I just never have. It's like apparently I have to go to Alaska to make that happen. But Yellowstone was great. We were on our way home. My son wasn't feeling good that morning, so we were going to stay at the grandparents' house, but he wasn't feeling good. He had a fever. It's my kids' great grandparents. They're in their 80s. So I'm like, no, we're not going to stay there because I don't want to get the grandparents sick. So we're driving straight home. It is 7:00 at night, and my tire exploded. One of my good tires, not one of the tires I was worried about. It exploded on I-90 going 80 miles an hour. That's the speed limit. I was going the speed limit, wasn't going crazy fast like I might have touched that day before or anything. But yeah, the tire exploded. I blew 6 of my beadlock bolts off the side. I don't know if that's related to that or what, but it actually bent the ring. So I've got to replace that beadlock ring. And up on the tow truck I went, and I ended up fortunately staying at my.
Good thing you got AAA or whatever.
Yeah, we've got our
What was the max speed you think you reached that day?
that day
No, that on the trip.
on the trip. Oh, I know what it was on the trip. It was 106.
I would like to. I just checked. The
Yeah, I looked into
have
it.
a speed reading of Q, which means
It
up
is-
to 100 miles an hour, but not
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. So that might.
Well,
have
you did. Well, you mentioned that you had a full suspension compression bump stop incident also.
not full bump stop, but it was a. There was a hill that I went over at like 85 on the freeway. This is on the freeway, and it just like the whole rig kind of went woo woo, and I was like, whoa, that because it was just a long road. Wasn't
And how
expecting.
much later did your tire blow after that?
6 hours. Because that was pretty. It was like the early part of I-90. Once I got on the I-90 from Yellowstone, and I think that's 2 hours. So maybe 4 hours
I
before
guess
that.
what I'm trying to say, Ben, and with all due respect, I can't prove it, but I think it's your fault. Your tire blew up.
Probably. I mean,
Like I said, I have no proof.
Well, my guess is that those bolts broke at some point or fell out. But no, you said they were broken.
yeah,
Those
they
bolts
were
broke.
sheared.
Yeah, those bolts broke, and it slowly let air seep out, and your tire went flatter and flatter and flatter without you knowing it. Because that type of blowout that you have there is either a really old tire, which these aren't really old tires,
Nope, they're 3
or
years old.
yeah, or a low pressure where they overheated. The rubber got really, really hot all the way
Yeah.
around, and that's how that blew out. So that was a low tire pressure blow.
Yeah, I went through the day. Yes, at least the wheel stayed on. Yes, Travis, thank you. I checked my torque on my lug nuts, and I did a visual inspection around all my wheels and all that morning, because I actually had one of my my rear sway bar link, one of the bolts came loose, and I was hearing the clank. So I went through, I checked it, and I got paranoid. So I went through and I did a full inspection. I had my torque wrench with me, and
So your
checked.
truck was trying to level itself up, and you were like, "No, back in your cage and put this
Yep,
sway bar back on."
Oh, it was just my rear sway bar, which I've never removed. But yeah, so I ended up having to stay in Montana anyways. My sister-in-law lives in the next town over, so we stayed at her house, which she on the way home was not feeling good. So it was like, okay, we don't have to worry about getting grandma and grandpa sick. So we all crashed at her place. The Forerunner got towed to the Firestone that was supposed to open up Sunday morning, and they opened up, and they only had one tire. They wouldn't sell it to me, and they wouldn't, because my tread was not the same as that tire, and they didn't want the liability. I'm like, I'll sign a waiver, whatever. And then they're like, well, we'll sell you smaller tires. I'm like, no. If I'm going to replace it, it's just for this till I get home. And so they wouldn't do it. I took it off. The tow truck driver that picked me up the night before was really cool. He stayed with us till my mother-in-law got there to pick up the rest of the family, because it's just like a Dodge cab with 2 seats. He picked us up. He waited, picked up the family, got picked up. He drove the next day, out to his dad's shop in Superior, which is an hour away. Found just a junk tire, not junk, but like a trail spare. Drove it out to me so I could at least get the Forerunner moved because they wanted me out of their parking lot at Firestone. Walmart wouldn't mount the tire. Fortunately, my brother's a Toyota tech at the dealership there, and he was able to use his shop keys to go in and mount the tire. And I moved it to Pomps in Missoula. It's another tire shop. And they sold me tires first thing in the morning on Monday. And as I was throwing my spare tire on afterwards, my cladding fell off the Forerunner. It was, I don't know, it was like, oh, now it's officially a trip where your cladding's falling off. But I ended up with some brand new KO3s.
So my question is, did your wife have anything to say about all this? Like, what was her take on this?
The funniest thing about it is I was worried about my front tires because they were worn and cupped, and they weren't the ones that blew. It was the rear tire. And before the trip, I was like, it'd be a good idea. We should just replace the tires before we go on our trip, just in case. And I wanted to have a spare, and I just didn't have enough time to get it all together. And I had all my other tire repair stuff, but would not have repaired that. I don't think there's enough tread glue in the world to repair that tire.
You just need like 80 pool noodles and a bunch of tread glue treads, and get you somewhere.
Yeah. So she said next time she'll listen to me when I say, hey, we should do this before we leave, for sure.
So you took the wheeler rig on a road trip, blew the tire, and somehow taught your wife a lesson to listen to you.
Yes.
Teach me, master. A wise one.
Well, here's what you do. You have the worst or the best bad luck is, it seems to be like a family thing for us. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen, but you're still going to be alive and make it through it, and you've got a story to go with it. So,
are these new ones bead locked on? Did this shop?
So the tech in the shop, he did do the fronts. He put them back on beads for me, which was pretty cool. I gave him a little tip and a thank you. I had asked him, I said, just throw them on the inner ones. But he had a third gen Forerunner in the parking lot with some Kindas on some skinnies. I think they were 35s. And he went through and he torqued them and all that. I was wondering what was taking him so long to get them mounted. And he went through and he torqued them. And then I double checked them when I got back to my in-laws' house. Or my sister-in-law's house.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was the story of how I now have some KO3s. And wow, they ride amazingly good. We've gotten some rain here. And they don't spin out in the rain like I've seen with KO2. People complain about with KO2s. Obviously, they're fresh, brand new tires, so it could be.
I've had a multitude of mud trains, and I've never really spun them out because the pavement's wet.
Yeah, well, that was one thing I heard about people with KO2s having a problem with, is when it was wet, they would spin fairly easy, going around corners.
I didn't experience that at all with my KO2s. In fact, I had a lot of traction.
So, I didn't experience that at all, but I also drive a Toyota, so wildly underpowered, to be fair.
Well, this is like the fifth gen crowd that drives their fifth gens, and they like the
they probably have no idea what they're talking about then.
The Falcon.
They're probably comparing them to street tires.
Probably. And that's probably exactly it. But I love them. They run great. They sound, there's barely any sound, especially going from cup tires in the front to not.
Yeah.
So I've got fancy tires now. Pinky out.
You have tier 1 brand tires on your rig, so
Yeah.
they're gonna be good. So
Yep. I'm super happy with them. So
I think that, especially with this tire, your Mantle's ditch queen is not going anywhere. Like, I think you're safe.
I think he'll still end up in the ditch, though.
I think it's very possible, but you're gonna probably blow a sidewall because they're BFGs. So while you're in the ditch, there'll be like a stick or something.
No, that's the BFG KO2 and probably KO3's big deal is they've upped the sidewall game to make them like
almost as good as regular tires. Yeah,
really tough.
Well, are they tougher than their old ones, or are they tougher than like other brands?
I guess I'd have to. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm happy with them. So
don't crush my.
I didn't tear out. I never tore out any sidewalls on any of my BFGs. I've run 3 sets of them.
I've seen you wheel.
You're saying I'm a good wheeler?
Yeah,
really good at wheeling.
Mm-hmm. Super good.
Real careful.
Very, very good.
Very sunken.
Yeah. Demure. Very demure.
What is no for real?
I don't
what
know.
is that? I see it all over these. Well, I don't know what it means.
Just
like
I'm like right now.
I want the other end of the joke.
I can't even spell it.
Are people just using that word a lot now? Like there has to be like a joke. Where's the punchline? Like I don't get it.
My guess is somebody said it. Yeah.
I know I'm getting old, but it's like I'm down with the joke. Like it's lit, fam. Okay, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm Rizzler. Whatever they call it.
Yeah, you got.
Yeah, all that stuff. You just got to explain it for this old guy.
Y'all skibbity about it?
I've only read that word. I'm not sure how you say it, but yeah,
skibbity.
Whatever that means.
Skibbity toilet riz.
Oh my goodness!
I don't know what I just said. I don't know what I just said. I might have just cursed a whole lot right there. I don't know.
No, from what I caught of that, none of it was too terrible. And I only know this from being on a school bus and having to listen to it.
So what's demure mean, Ben? It's
a new one. I just started seeing those videos too. That's very demure and very whatever.
Austere. Those are actually real words. They're not fake words like skibbity. They're very like uppity words, something that they would use back in like the 17th century in England when they're talking about their castles that they live in. It's a very demure
that's very
castle or something.
Very keen.
Yeah, I thought it was a word you had to use to like describe a couch or something. I don't know.
Demure.
Fancy. It's very fancy.
Yeah.
All right.
We also want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Patch. Head over to patriotpatch.co and check out their selection of great patches, shirts, cleaning mats, signs, and stickers. You can also join the Patch of the Month Club for $15 and receive a patch, matching sticker, and artist proof each month.
Raggle Fraggle says, yeah, he throws out demure of sober, serious mind, composed and decorous in bearing of modest look, staid, grave, effectively modest, decorous or serious, making a show of gravity. I kind of get the meaning of it, but I don't understand the videos where all these people are like mocking using the word as a joke, but I don't get. I'm assuming someone else used it in a dumb way or something. They're mocking that person. I don't know. I need.
I'm going to go with that.
I need patient zero video so that I can understand all these others. I need to take it back, like a Robin Cook novel.
So, have you guys seen Patriot Patch's Patch of the Month for September?
I got an email, but I didn't open it. I thought it was spam.
For victory.
Yeah.
Liberty Prime.
Liberty Prime.
Robot.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's very cool, and looking forward to that one.
Have tire troubles ever left you deflated? Colby Valve has got you covered. Ever have a valve stem leak? Colby Valve makes reusable and easily replaceable valve stems that don't require you to remove your tire from the wheel. They work with your off-road rig, ATV, side-by-side, commuter vehicle, or even your tractor. Never be left stranded again because of a busted valve stem. They also have a tire repair kit for those punctures that keep you away from doing your favorite thing, wheeling. Make sure to check out colbyvalve.com or ask for them at your local off-road products store.
All right, we're 40 minutes in, so we're just gonna bang out one news story tonight, instead of two. And this news story is from Autoblog, and it's the Ford Raptor T1 Plus is revealed at Goodwood. And if you're wondering what it looks like, boom, there it is. That doesn't look anything like a Ford Raptor, you guys.
No,
But
that's like a GT40.
But they are running the best tires that you can ever get. So it says this wild-looking off-roader is a Ford Raptor T1 Plus, and it's a purpose-built vehicle set to take on the Dakar Rally. Revealed at the 2024 Goodwood Festival of Speed, this Ford is built in a collaboration with Ford Performance and M Sport Limited, a UK-based motorsports engineering company known for its rally efforts. Under the hood is the 5-liter Coyote V8 with an unspecified amount of horsepower. It has a dry sump oil system and unique exhaust fully visible in the rear, which I think that looks really cool in that picture. It looks like it might even be titanium. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it is fully visible, but it doesn't look unique to me. Like they just
I'm not sure.
Throw a 90 on it. Like,
yeah,
I've seen.
I'm not sure why it has to be called unique. Yeah.
Have you guys been watching the Rally Raid? If you have HBO Max, the Rally Raid stuff on there. Oh, they have like seasons of it. It's awesome.
Eric's asking if that spare is in the normal location. That is the normal location if you are a Dakar rally racer. It shows it's got Koi's t-shirt size there for his number, also 2XX.
Oh, you think there's a 2 in front of mine?
Okay, it's on Fox 3-way adjustable and 4-way adjustable external bypass dampers with remote reservoirs. Ford says it has 13.8 inches of wheel travel. It rides on 37-inch tires on 17-inch aluminum wheels. Says this, so I'm hoping you guys can help me out with this, or maybe our listeners. It says it's got Alcon discs and 6-piston rotors. What is an Alcon? ALCON. Alcon disc. And 6-piston calipers at each corner. It's got 15.7 inches of ground clearance, and the body is made of carbon fiber panels. I know Ben is Googling it right now, but I thought maybe you guys might know without Googling.
I haven't Googled it, but I think it's what the metal is made out of. Or maybe it's a certain brand. I don't know.
Alcon.
Oh, no. Alcon is a brand.
A brand. Okay. Travis says it's a brake brand. The livery calls out Ford's partnership with Red Bull with a traditional.
I gotta say, if no one knows who Alcon Brakes is, you don't brag about that. Like, you know, like, okay, I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe people in the Dakar Rally know all about the Alcon brakes, and we just aren't deep enough into the Dakar.
From what I've watched of these, nobody they're the kind of drivers, they don't really know anything about the car. They just drive them, it appears.
Yeah. They're like, I've hired you to drive this thing.
Yeah. There's just some Dubai prince that bought this and was like, hey, you did pretty good in the side-by-sides. You should drive the car now. And they're like, okay.
Yeah. Says the livery calls out Ford's partnership with Red Bull with a traditional Red Bull design and colors. There's a lot of Raptor branding spattered all over it too, with a Raptor spelled out in the front skid plate. The Ford Raptor T1 Plus is a stake in the ground for our global off-road vision. We want to take on the best and prove ourselves in the toughest places on earth. The lessons we are learning from Raptor T1 Plus, along with competing with stock trucks in the Baja 1000 and Finke Desert Race will help make Raptor vehicles even better for our customers, says Mark Roshbrook, who's the global director of Ford Performance Motorsports. And the last thing it says here is that Ford intends to enter it in at least 3 rally events through January of this year, with the last of it being the Dakar Rally. So keep an eye out for it. Does 14 inches of suspension or of wheel travel seem like a lot?
Maybe that's just one way. Like that's total is 14 inches.
So it says that Ford says it has 13.8 inches of wheel travel. That doesn't seem like very much.
Not that much. That maybe ground clearance. I don't know.
No, they mentioned ground clearance later at 15.7. So I don't know. 14 inches doesn't seem like a lot of wheel travel. Maybe it doesn't need a ton of wheel travel. It's got, I don't know.
Raggle Fraggle. There's an interesting question for another show. What vehicle would you drive in the Dakar Rally? It's an Isuzu. I can tell you that much.
Not a man.
I'm sorry, what?
You don't want to drive one of those big man trucks, the chase trucks, or the
Ooh.
parts trucks?
I thought we'd have to. No, I thought we were picking like stock, like OEM vehicles. I definitely. If I could pick anything, I'm 100% getting the like built out Unimog.
Yes.
Yeah,
where it's 3 people sitting across, 3 people wide. I don't know what the other people do. Maybe one person's talking about a map while the other person's running the windshield wipers or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Here's those brakes for an FJ Cruiser. It's 6-piston. They're $2,900, $3,000 for the larger rotor.
Whoa.
Yeah. Fancy.
They fancy.
They are fancy. The Raptor has the same amount. The Ford Raptor standard truck has 13 inches front, 14 rear for its travel.
Yeah, see, I mean, that's probably a lot for an OEM vehicle, but I would think for a Dakar, that doesn't seem like a lot for a Dakar vehicle. I don't know.
Raggle Fraggle asks the Kamaz. Going to be totally honest, I don't know what that is, but if you're asking about the Isuzu that I would drive, obviously it's a Via Cross, bro. Like, I'm taking a Via Cross. If I have to pick just like an OEM used vehicle, I would look the part, and I would feel like
you would look the part. You would look the part with a Via Cross.
At James Bond villain driving in a Via Cross across the desert somewhere, ready to sabotage.
The Kamaz
be cool.
The Kamaz is one of those big Unimog looking rigs.
Yeah, if we're going, just
can you imagine if you made one of those center steer, one of those giant trucks center steer? That way, your 2 passengers are on either side of you. They could deploy out of either side quickly rather than like walking around the truck to get to the other side. You just like quick deploy people.
Or if they just were screaming too much, you could just lean across them, pop the door, and then kick them out.
Push them. Yeah. If you did a quad cab, you could have 6 people. You're driving. Obviously, you sit in your seat. You don't need to get out ever. But you've got these other 5 people to get out. You know those landscaping Isuzus that are 4 doors? Just got to build one of those up.
I'm sorry. What landscaping Isuzu? I'm confused.
Those the cab over Isuzu diesel trucks. They make 4-door versions of those now, and you see like landscape companies using them with a flatbed.
Yeah.
And they have all their guys in them. They got like 17 guys in them. So.
I think what they need to do is open another class where you have to have 4 guys in the vehicle, and you have to consume a certain amount of alcoholic beverage. Like there's a cooler with 62 cans in there, and it all has to be gone. We're not saying the driver has to drink it, but it has to be a lot, and make it like car can't cost more than 10 grand, and then just watch Hillbilly send it.
Badland says that's a Gambler 500.
Yeah, but you can still do it.
And
for 500. I'm pretty sure you can't get a DUI in the Sahara Desert. I think they kill you for drinking or cut off your hand or something in those countries.
But yeah, Yeah.
But you don't get a DUI. So your driving record's still flawless.
Yeah. Well, we just did an entire another episode in that little section about what we're driving on the Dakar. We haven't heard from Ben what he's driving yet. Finish us out here before the main topic, Ben. What are you driving?
Man.
Yeah, one of those just giant trucks also.
I would love to drive one of those giant trucks. I've eyeballed them for
You
years.
could fit so many extra tires in one of those and jacks and things.
Yeah, actually, I think that was one of Aaron's first comments when we talked about early on with the podcast. Was he wrote in about the man trucks because I said something about him, and
it actually was about the Dakar Rally specifically, and I gave a correction about the Dakar Rally. Good memory, Ben.
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to driving one of those rally fighters. Those are pretty cool. I know they're like $300,000, but I'm a big fan of those.
Well, they don't make
I
those
feel like
anymore.
that wouldn't finish. I feel like they'd fall apart.
I guess
So
He was in it. That's all that matters.
I'd get more airtime than a skateboard at the X Games till it didn't.
yeah.
Should we jump into the main topic?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, guys. Back in July, Aaron and I guest hosted on the Newfound Overland podcast. And Benji was asking us some questions, and he's like, let's talk about some of your favorite campsites in the Pacific Northwest. And it honestly took both of us off we're a little taken back by it because you don't really think about all the cool places you've camped. You just get, kind of one favorite one or whatever that comes. But like, we started talking about it later and start getting all nostalgic and talking about, back before I even built my rig, we camped this cool spot. And I've always wanted to go back, but it's been 7 years. And it kind of just grew this episode that we want to talk about some like cool camp spots and kind of little adventures we had on those spots, either getting to them or while we were camping. And some of these we've talked about on the show. Some of these are way before that, so
Yeah.
We can kick it off, I guess, guys. Ben, why don't you lead?
All right, yeah. So I'd have to say one of my favorites early on was when Aaron took me up to Trash Camp, is what he called it, which is
Garbage camp.
And
Yeah.
it's just up there in the Snoqualmie Forest off of the 70 road, well, deep in that area. And we went up there to watch stars, shooting stars, and took this great photo. We also experienced an owl with bronchitis, which actually was a bear chuffing at us because camp was surrounded by a bunch of huckleberries, and we were kind of where he wanted to be, and he wasn't happy about that, or she. So yeah, it was but it was a fun time.
Is that your expendable hero in the background?
That is the very expendable hero. One of the few trips it got on.
It's a sweet JK.
No,
No,
not JK.
Sorry, XJ.
There you go.
Yeah, that was before I even did anything to it, I believe, too. That was just threw stuff in.
You modified your XJ?
I put like
No,
I put on
he repaired.
Yeah,
he repaired it. That was what he did to it.
yeah.
No, you did put some lift springs on it, I thought.
Yeah, I did a 2-inch lift and did a bumper. I did a JCR off-road.
Oh, that's right. The bumper.
Because Aaron welded it together for me.
Yeah. Forgot about the bumper.
And it came with a light bar and.
Wait, is that why you became friends with Pete as soon as Aaron left? Your welder buddy left, so you had to find a new welder buddy?
No,
the timing's about
Busted.
right.
No, actually,
Busted.
I became friends with Pete through the roof rack. We just kept talking and got along very well.
At what point did he say he was a welder?
When he was selling me the idea of the roof rack.
So you immediately knew off the hand. Before the friendship progressed, you knew he was a welder. I don't know, Ben.
But here's the problem: is he lives a hour and a half away, so it's not exactly a convenience to go up there. Granted, I do have his welder right there now at my house. So one of them.
What about you, Aaron?
I've got this is going way back before I owned a body on frame off-road vehicle. I had my wife's Subaru Outback, and here's a picture of it. And this was the first trip I'd ever taken out into the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, and there were 2 Forest Service roads that I wanted to go down, but one of them was blocked by this Gradall. Thankfully, I had keys in my pocket for a Gradall, so I just started up and lifted the boom, moved the road closed sign, and drove around it, and I had that whole forest road to myself out there. And by forest road, like it's when Ben's talking about
Aaron,
the 70 road.
Allegedly, you did these.
No. This we're past. This has been more than 10 years ago, so it's okay to talk about it now. This is a big main road down there. I can't remember if it was the 23 or the 25 because one road was open, one road was blocked, and we went down the one, explored everything, came back, and we went down this one. I dropped the Gradall, closed the sign, went on our merry way. At the other end, the road is blocked by a locked gate. So, yeah, it was amazing back there, and I share this memory because this is what brought me to this campsite that's now in this picture. This is the infamous campsite that we talk about when we go snow camping. You guys have never seen it looking like this because you've only ever been there when there's snow on the ground. This is what it looks like without snow. And I love this campsite so much. I'll never tell people where it's at. You can only know about it if you go camping with me at this location. Super neat. It's not too far from civilization. It gets used often. I've showed up there and there are people there. But the campsite, this is the location that made Gifford-Pinchot my favorite place to go roam around was this campsite. I even had a topographical map printed onto a blanket that I had my wife gift to me for Christmas one year. So, yeah,
You had to do
love
a lot of work for that Christmas present.
Yeah, I did. All right, Coy. Kick one off here.
I'm going to go with kind of the old original here. You guys may remember on my first guest spot on the show a billion years ago, you said, what was your most embarrassing off-road story? And I essentially told this story. My wife and I think I had 2 kids then. I just had the one. We decided to go to Willow's Hot Spring and Alvord Desert and stuff. Just us, no one else, all by ourselves. I had the little tiny pop-up tent trailer, and it's, off-road, air quotes, package. I left after work, so I knew I was getting there at like midnight, 1 a.m, somewhere in there. And I was very close, like 10 miles away. And it says, turn right on this little chicken scratch dirt road. And I thought, well, that's weird, but, I know, I've seen pictures of Willow Hot Spring. It looks kind of like dirt all around it. This checks the box. So I turned down here. And the road got worse and worse and worse. And then I could just see faint tracks in the grass where a wagon passed through in the early 1900s. Like
early 1900s. You mean like in the mid 1800s?
Yeah. Like I can't, like, only in the daylight, I don't think you could have tell there was ever a road there because the headlights are shining across it and across this grass. You could see the depression where this had been a road. And I drove. I should have been there because I was literally doing like 3 miles an hour and I had like 10 miles to go, maybe 5 miles an hour. I drove through a creek. Like I literally forded and my wife was freaking out how we're going to get stuck in the creek. There's nothing to winch through. And I'm like, I got it. Don't worry. I got it. And I finally get, and I can see some campfires down there and we pull up to an absolutely locked gate. I could have almost yelled to these people, and I've never been so tempted to cut a fence, and I still haven't. But I had the tools to do it, and I thought long and hard about whether I was going to cut that fence, and it was less than a quarter mile away. But I turned around, and I drove all the way back out and circled back around. I got to this campsite instead of at like midnight to 1. I rolled in at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's a bunch of people camping around there, and I have an electric pop-up tent, and I'm just it's got a little winch thing. I'm running it like I'm 12 feet away from other campers, sliding it out, all the Velcro and stuff, and
banging it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm almost dead. Like I'm hit. I just 5 o'clock in the morning. I've hit 24 hours awake at that point, and went to sleep in the camper. Got up, got in the hot spring, had a great time. Like it was super fun. Went and drove on the Alvord and saw airplanes taking off, and it was still to this day one of my best memories of a camping trip. I just love that little part in the beginning sucked, and it was super embarrassing because I was on search and rescue, and it was always like, oh, don't just blindly follow your GPS. And I did exactly that. And so I always tell that story when people ask what's embarrassing, because that's my learning moment. I should have known better, and I think it was a cool story. It was fun. My wife even tells it sometimes. So,
But like it got you to that hot spring and campgrounds, and you've been back there many times, and you share it with other people because it's such a cool place.
Willow's Hot Spring?
Yeah.
I think it's a cool place. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. You got there eventually, and you camped there. And it was
I thought you were saying it like sarcastically. I'm like, it's pretty.
No. No,
spring.
I'm saying like it's a big deal. I think the first time I was there was with you also. I think.
Willow? I can't remember. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We've been
May have
down
been
there
there with Josh. I may have been there with Josh before I went there with
It's a
you.
really
I
cool
don't
hot
remember.
spring, and you get there year round, down by the Alvord. It's gotten pretty busy, I guess, and it was fairly busy when I was there, but I guess it's pretty busy now.
Yeah.
But go in the winter, like it's very very cool. Just don't be afraid to see naked people.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, Badland Industries is asking if that campsite is near a paved section of road and a bridge.
Is he asking you for yours?
Yeah, it says he looks like a spot that he camped with Dirt Lifestyle. This is off of a gravel road. There is a bridge, but there's no paved around it. You leave the pavement and you keep on going on gravel for quite a ways. So, yeah, there's a bridge. If you keep trying to go on this the road to the campsite, there's a bridge, but it's you can't get across it. In fact, you can't hardly walk across it either because it's an old log bridge. There, I've said too much. You're muted though, Ben.
All right, so my next one is the Gifford Pen Show with, but it was the first time we went up there. We camped at a different spot because we couldn't make it to the camp, and on our way there was what started the whole Ditch King thing. Was me just sliding into the ditch up to my door, trying to climb out. It was fun. We ended up camping down by the river instead, and all sorts of shenanigans unfolded. I believe that's you did a polar plunge that year.
I did a polar plunge. I did manual mode with my with the quadcopter.
Yeah, that was
I crashed the quadcopter into Aaron's truck.
Yeah.
Had you never manually driven a drone before?
No, I like when you hold it, and I was trying to like let it rip off and fly out of my hand. And I was holding it, and then it just would it would do 180 degree and crash into the ground. So I called it manual mode.
Well, they usually do have a manual mode, the more expensive ones, but if you've never manually, it's incredible. It can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I invented manual mode.
Yeah. And then that was also when I really hated Mr. Buddy because I borrowed a buddy heater. I was so cold, and click, it'd come on for a second and then shut off. Click. I spent half the night trying to get warm. So yeah. Fun times.
Yeah,
great memories.
You slept in your ARB sidewall thing off of the annex.
Awning,
yeah.
Yeah. Fun times. Lots of memories. Yeah.
I also used that quadcopter to stoke the fire. I flew it 1 foot, 2 feet above the fire, and it sent the downdraft, and it was shooting coals all over everybody while they're sitting around the campfire. It's good memories. That was a great camp trip.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it's every now and then we bring up something from that trip, be it the ditch or be it, manual mode.
Yeah. Badlands, Gifford Pinchot, almost everything out there looks really similar. There's so much mountain peaks, creeks, rivers, bridges, dug fir trees. There's a lot of
That's
the
what I'd
same.
say if somebody guessed my camp spot and I was trying to keep it a secret. I'd say
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, Dirt Lifestyle, I'm sure he's probably been to that campsite. He's been out there camping. So, my next one is also about snow camping, and it was when I went camping between Thanksgiving and New Year's to a place out of side of Mount Rainier, and I'd been there once before. It's called Soda Springs Campground, and I couldn't get to Soda Springs, so I just started driving up random Forest Service roads, and the weather was supposed to be good, and for some reason my phone rang while I was setting up camp, and it was my wife. And I don't know how I had cell phone reception, but she's like, "Hey, there's a blizzard headed your way. The weather forecast changed. A lot of snow is headed your way." I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll just kind of see what happens." And I set up camp. I was pulling my little off-road camp with a rooftop tent, and I had my son with me. He was 7 or so. Set up camp, and I brought this little DVD player, and he's watching a movie in there, and I'd go out and check, and the ruts that I drove in on had been filled with snow, and my truck has got 4 inches of snow on it. So I brushed the truck off just to kind of get a gauge of where we're at. And now it's 10 o'clock at night, and I'm looking, and I'm like, that's we got a lot of snow. And the rooftop tent is sagging from all the weight of the snow on it. It is big wet snow. And now the road that I drove in on, you couldn't even tell that I drove in on it because the snow was completely covering it. And so I went to sleep, and I woke up at midnight, and trees are bending over and leaning because they're so heavy with snow. So I start packing up everything. I left my son sleeping up in the tent. I packed up as much stuff as I could, and then I woke him up, put him in the cab of the truck, and packed down the rooftop tent and started driving my way out of this snowstorm. And I truly believe that if I hadn't left then, if I would have tried to leave the next morning, I would have been stuck, or I would have had to abandon. I don't think I would have been stuck. I would have had to abandon my trailer up there. I'm sure I could have driven out. But as I drove out, those trees were over the road, and my truck is just blasting through those trees. And here's a picture. This is in the town that I came down to and got fuel at. You can see how much snow is impacted into my roof rack and into the front grill from blasting through everything. And this is at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
isn't that the trip where you left your winch controller somewhere?
Yes, he left it on
Yeah,
the
so
trailer.
yeah, I left it in the front box of my trailer. I unhooked from the trailer to go drive around and look for a campsite. I'm like, I don't need to drag the trailer everywhere. And the Max Tracks didn't work. I had to do a lot of digging with a shovel and use the Max Tracks to get out of what I got stuck on. So, yeah.
Funny.
That was that trip.
Funny thing about that trip is I was just a listener that years ago.
Yeah.
And I sent in a digital picture of the Zelda patch with the worn winch on it because of you telling this story. It's weird how this all connects.
What a full circle. Yeah, I remember that. I got home at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning and just walked into the house and went to sleep. I was exhausted because I didn't really sleep either. So
I remember getting a text from you that next morning going like, you're not going to believe what happened.
Yeah.
Well, my next one, it's a weird one, but it's one of my finest hours and probably my greatest moment, possibly. So I was camping up Yellow Bottom, which is hardly even real camping. It's just a road that winds up along this river. And there's all these there's hundreds of pullouts. And you can drive up there in a Honda Civic and pull off on most of these and camp. But me and the family used to go up there and camp a lot. And we'd play in the water and dink around. So I was camping up there, and my brother was camping just a little bit down with his friend and their associated families and wives and girlfriends or whatever they had going on. And him and his friend, they had about a 15-year drinking problem. And then they've both at this point seemed to have wrestled that under control by never drinking again. But so I went down with them, and we were all drinking, and my brother's kind of a crazy man. And he would do this thing where he would cut a shotgun shell and dump all the powder out and then just throw it into the fire, and it would go poof, and then he would try to like run off into the darkness like Batman, like just do a smoke bomb trick. So him and his buddy are doing that, and they wouldn't say anything. All of a sudden they would just jump up and just smash gunpowder into the fire, and it would woof, and everybody like rolls back and jumps. And they did that multiple times, and it was getting kind of annoying. On the ground, a little ways from the fire where I was standing, there was to this day, I'm not sure what it was. It was kind of like a citronella candle, like one of those big, weird metal tubs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was full of like wax or grease or something. And then it looked like a cardboard spiral inside of that. And then it just kind of burned the top of this stuff. I'd been standing beside it, and I just kind of spit down into it because it's just this little burning bucket. And it did poof, popped up like a little softball size, like if you spit in hot grease or dumped water in hot grease, little softball size ball of flame up to about waist high, just kind of popped it up. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And at some point, my brother did the flame thing trick, tried to run off in the darkness, and we'd all been drinking. And I was standing there with a bottle of water. And I was like, think that's cool? And I just tipped back and just got as much water as I could in my mouth. And I looked at him, and I just leaned down and just blasted this entire thing of water in there. I expected like something to happen, but it was probably a 3 foot, 12 foot tall column of flame that just explodes straight out of the top. Like, I had to run away because I was going to get burnt. I wasn't even playing the game. Everybody else, like people, just kicked their chairs backwards. Like it was just this go whoom grease fire flame that just shot into the air. And I, since I ran away from danger, trying not to get burned by this thing I'd created, I took off running into the darkness, and I became the world champion ninja smoke bomb disappearing act in my family. Like that hasn't been topped since.
That's awesome.
Well, my next one here is backcountry discovery route up on Bethel Ridge with Jeremy. It was the first time I met him. It was our first night camping together up there on Bethel Ridge. We'd met that morning, I want to say at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and drove through sections 1 and 2 and partially through section 3. So we jammed all day through the trails. I had accidentally jumped my 4Runner. The rear lifted up, so it bounced so much that my tent was on top of my cooler, and then it was on the bottom of it, underneath it. That's how much everything in the back just moved around.
Have you ever purposefully jumped your 4Runner? Because I've seen you accidentally jump it at least twice.
No, I've never purposely jumped it.
Because in Christmas Valley, you accidentally jumped the bejesus out of it.
Yeah. That was a little bit more lead foot than accidental, on purpose. Like, just have fun.
Went full send for sure.
Yeah. But no, that time it was completely accidental. It was just it whoop, and then I wasn't expecting another one dip like it did, and I had my foot on the throttle, and it just kept on. I jumped it. I was expecting flat ground on the other side, and it was another whoop. So I just popped up, back end popped up, and Jeremy's like, "Whoa, you just jumped your rig. Like, what have I gotten myself into?" Then we get up to camp, and we've set up. We're eating dinner in some weird lady pulls up in a brand new 5th gen, asking us if we'd seen anyone else, and there was crazily homeless people in an RV down the road, and then she leaves and comes back and asks us to go check out her campsite. So I leave. I think Henry was 7 or 8 at the time, with Jeremy, this guy I just met, who's a listener of the podcast, to go make sure this lady gets to her camp safely. 'Cause we were a little weirded out, but I trusted Jeremy more than I trusted following this lady, because Jeremy had his tent on the back of his Tacoma. And so we go out, and it just turns out her husband, she like drove into the wood. It was really weird. I thought she was going to hang herself by the time I figured out that her husband had cheated on her, and this is where family goes camping. They had like this whole camp set up hidden in the trees through a field of wildflowers. So yeah, it's super creepy. And then she wanted us to check on her in the morning, and like I made Jeremy and my son stay back while I went towards her camp to make sure she was alive first.
Make sure she wasn't trying to have you just report her body missing. Found.
Exactly. Yeah. It was off the walls crazy. And it was just like, oh, and she was completely happy, sober. And she's just, yeah, I had a really rough day and all this. And I appreciate you guys checking on me, because there was some homeless, and like, we never saw the RV down the road when we were driving. So I don't know if it was some Breaking Bad action going on and they got scared by her driving by or what, but we didn't see anyone when we left. So yeah, it was kind of crazy and made for a fun story and a fun time. I mean, honestly, after things calmed down, yeah, it was a fun one. And I've yet to go back to Bethel Ridge since, and I actually want to go up there and explore some more, because we mostly stuck to the backcountry discovery route, but there's some side trails to go explore up there.
Well, if we go, I want to use their family campsite. It sounds nice. Like if they
it does. And I know exactly where it is. I've got it marked.
You've got the campsite marked.
Is there like a cabin or anything?
They had like some lean-tos made with like branches and stuff.
Perfect. Yeah.
And you could actually back in there too.
My next one is the first time I went overland in Nevada, and this was back in 2018, and it was with none of my overlander friends or off-road friends or anything. In fact, it was with a guy that I had never met, and another guy that I think I had met one time. Somehow I had friended him on Facebook. He was my cousin Eric's friend, and I'd friend him on Facebook. We were mutual friends. And I heard him say something about a trip or something. So I called him, and I got his phone number. I called him. I'm like, hey, you're going to Nevada for this trip. Can I come? I literally invited myself on this trip. And it turned out it was a good thing I did, because his vehicle broke down, and we just ended up using my vehicle only. And we threw a motorcycle carrier on the back to haul his friend's motorcycle. And the three of us drove my Nissan, loaded to the gills with camping equipment and a motorcycle on the back. And he took me to all these awesome homesteads and springs and a frozen over lake that I went swimming in up in high deserts above the Black Rock Mountains. It's called the Blue Lakes. Just, there's a chain of lakes up there. Just some amazing places, some hot springs, Virgin Valley hot springs. He took me to the Antelope hot springs, not Antelope. So the Antelope Reservation outside of Plush. What do you remember what that one's called? Hart. It's called Hart Mountain Hot Springs. Coy. Yeah. So yeah, that was a really good time. And it was an eye-opening trip, because I'd never really seen this part of the country or that part of, I'd never been in Nevada driving before. So it was really cool. I'm going to try to keep it short, because we're an hour and 20 minutes in and we still have a bunch more to go. So Coy, what's your next one?
So my next one is I did the Oregon Backcountry Discovery Route 4. That was before whatever the new Backcountry Discovery Route is, but there used to be 6 different ones. And I did it with friends, and I had a camp trailer back then. It looks like this. I'll pop it up. It's old. It was just a homemade. I think it was made out of an old boat trailer. Not real good suspension, though. Anyways, we had our cooler and stuff in there, and we had been driving, trying to find a good camp spot. It was like getting darker and darker, and then finally we get to this just massive open kind of hilltop area. There's trees around it, but I mean it's 200 acres. Just looks like the surface of Mars. It's all rocky and stuff. And we finally get there, and we set up our tent. The cooler, all the stuff inside the cooler had bounced so violently that it just like exploded. Like the mustard bottle, the ketchup bottle are just shattered. They're plastic bottles. It ruined all the food except for I had a plastic bag that had frozen hamburger patties in it. Everything else was trash. Like it just killed eggs. Everything is dead. So we just have like hamburger patties with nothing on them for dinner. That's all there was. I think my wife might have even been pregnant at the time, but we set up our tent, and that's when I learned you don't camp in like big open areas because the wind picked up at night and just all night long.
Yeah.
But we just finally picked this spot because it was getting dark and we just couldn't find a good spot. We pack up in the morning and we drive out of the road that leads away from there. And it was maybe 500 feet out of this area was this beautiful meadow with green grass, all trees. Like if we, that's why always when you can't find a spot, I'm like, there's always one. Whenever you give up, there's one right there. And same trip, I got one of my favorite pictures, kind of all time. I always call it the album cover picture. I took a picture of my truck with my wife and kid and dog, and they just look like a 90s album cover, like the way they're all posed and stuff. I've just loved this picture my whole life.
That dog looks huge in the foreground.
Yeah, no, it's a basset hound. It was tiny, but
yeah,
it was just it was a cool trip.
My next one here is we had done, I think it was our second Toys for Tots event. And that night, we were going to go run the Natchez Trail. It was the night before it closed. Aaron had to leave, so it was just Rick and Jeremy and I. We go up and we run the Natchez Trail, get to the top to Government Meadows. Good time. We're coming down, and it had started snowing. It was like sleeting, and you've got some sort of like rock. It's kind of rocky or just little drop offs. And I had my brakes full on and I slid and came down hard. And I had bent my, I thought I had bent, broke my, I thought I had broken my, upper control arm, like my ball joint or something. Turns out it was my spindle had bent so bad that my wheel was pushed into my upper control arm and my shocks. So we ended up camping. We drove all the way to a paved road, camped just off the paved road, and called Rick's AAA. It's how Rick's AAA became the thing. But we camped there that night, and it was at the point where it's like, well, nothing can be done about it. Like, so where we are, so we camped and just kind of had a good night, chilling, drank a couple beers. I camped in the 4Runner with the seat back. I think I had Henry with me too. We had he slept in the driver's side, so his feet weren't kicking the steering wheel because he's shorter. And I slept in the passenger seat where with the 4Runners, you can take the headrests off and they lay flat even with the back seat. So it was a fun time. And I don't think I've been on Natchez Trail since. And Always thought about going back there when it's dry just to see what it's like. Or at least not sleeting.
Well, my next one would be camping at Bog Hot Springs this last November.
We got
So,
tough guy in the comments. It's cool.
Do you guys know who that is? Are you guys know who Paul Peters is?
He's added to our numbers. It's cool.
Yeah, I guess so. I just want to take a minute. He says, what's this podcast called? 3 Talking Dildos with Mics. It's funny that you're calling us dildos and your last name is Peters. So
Yeah.
Suck on that. So yeah, Natchez, no, not Natchez. Bog Hot Springs in November was amazing. It was so cold. It was down in the single digits at nighttime. And I'd get out of the tent in the morning and just go walk 20 steps and climb right into the hot springs. I was there with my buddy and Aaron Kravick. It was an amazing time. So if you ever can do hot springs in the winter when it's going to be super crisp and cold out, I try to do it. On that trip, we were only there for 2 nights and we were in the hot springs 4 or 5 times. I can't remember, but probably over those 48 hours that I was at this campsite, I bet you 10 of them I was in the water. So it was a great time.
Nice.
Coy, you got another one?
I do. We went camping. Every year there's like an FJ Cruiser thing at the dunes, and I just camp in a state park for that.
Oh
And
yeah.
I used to do it religiously, and this might be my finest hour, not the fire thing. It was good. It was close to it. Could have been. It's usually a bunch of guys. I mean, there's wives and stuff there, but it's, if you camp in campsite F loop, you're in that loop. Like it used to be, you were there to drink and have a good time. And then the next day you'd all go wheeling and then you come back and barbecue and have a good time. I knew a bunch of my friends in the FJ and Toyota community were going to be there, and I was going to be there late. I was at my house. I'd been on a cruise ship at some point, and I bought a gallon bottle of Crown. Well, I had drank that years had gone by, but I saved the bottle. And so I sat there and I filled that Crown bottle with apple juice. And then I took cranberry and just added it. I had a little bottle of Crown. I added cranberry juice till I got the color perfect.
Yeah.
Put the lid on it, and I drove all the way there, set up camp, and they'd been partying already. And I rolled up and I pull out this gallon bottle of Crown. I'm like, "Who wants some Crown?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, woo!" They're all excited. I'm like, right after my first drink, and I just spun the bottle cap off on my arm and just start chugging. And I drank a whole gallon, which is not as impressive as chugging a bottle of Crown, but still, it's not easy. And like people were losing their mind. Like it's the only time I've had someone jumping around screaming "World Star," and like that people were scrambling to get a camera out and like video it. And I put on a show. I stumbled around and was like, acted like I was going to throw up and stuff. And everyone believed it. There's one quiet guy sitting back on this picnic bench, and he goes, "Let me smell that bottle." I knew I was had. I kind of looked at him, and I was like, "Yeah, you got it." And I was like, because the best part was I planned to like stumble around the camp for 5 minutes and just jump in my FJ and drive back to town and get like a hamburger or something. And just watch them lose their mind. It would have been such a good and I could have come back. I just wanted to do that because it would have been a license for me to do anything. And like everybody be like, "Hey, why is he burning down the outhouse?" And they'd be like, "He drank a gallon of Crown the second he got." Like I could have done anything. I could have fought every one of those guys and had a semi-free pass. So, but I got caught, and it was still a good story, and people liked it. So. What about you, Aaron?
It's Ben's turn. We're back to Ben.
All right. I lost internet, so I'm on my phone now. But I got everything here still. My next one's Christmas Valley. It was the first time I'd gotten my family together with Coy's whole family. He invited us out, I think the year before, even to Christmas Valley. And it was fun. I mean, being able to just have that base camp, go out and blast around and then come back and drink weird pickle whiskey and It was a good time.
Pickle whiskey. I forgot about that.
Spicy
Yeah.
pickle whiskey. Yeah.
Spicy pickle whiskey. Yeah. Yeah. Uck. Yeah. No, thank you. But yeah, it was a good time, and it's one of those ones. It's like every time I think of Christmas Valley, it's pickle whiskey, spicy pickle whiskey, and uh, doing stupid stuff with my Forerunner in Christmas Valley. And my kids still talk about the dunes. They're like, "Oh, are we going to the dunes, Dad?" I'm like, "No, we're going to the mountains." They're like, "Oh." So, what about you, Coy?
Back to me.
Back to you,
No,
buddy.
I think it's
no,
Aaron's
not
turn.
back. My
It's
turn.
Aaron.
Yeah. So the next one is just every snow camp trip that I've done for like our yearly snow camp trip. It's been in different places. Usually it's the Gifford Pinchot, although this last year and a few years back it was in Central Oregon, but we always like those trips. I know Coy gets bummed out because we don't wheel the entire time. There's a lot of sitting at camp, and that's what I enjoy is just sitting around the biggest campfire you've ever seen in your life, outside of those ones in Sweden where they stack those pallets up the size of the Empire State Building. I think ours is the second biggest campfire that you've ever seen. So, um, we we'll bring we bring a bunch of guns, but we end up usually like pulling the 22s out, lever action or 10-22. We're shooting pop cans, or we might blow up some tannerite, or make
Burning
just
pounds
different
and
things.
pounds of magnesium alloy.
Yeah, just having fun stuff like that. So yeah, it's a good time. I've always enjoyed those trips. We do crazy cooking while we're out there. It's like every year we try to one up it. One year we brought a pellet powered pizza oven. We made personal pizzas. Um, the pranks that we pull, and then more people than me have jumped in the creek when it's below freezing out. Um, that's just fun. Just shenanigans. That's one of the shenanigans trips
Just to
that we always have.
ride on your coattails. I think last year was the perfect amount of wheeling to camping and sitting ratio and goofing. But I can't explain to people, and I haven't even talked to you about this. When we went up to the fire tower where it was the crazy wind overlooking Summer Lake, I still to this day is like, I think about that. That's one of the most beautiful things and coolest views.
Right there.
That right there, the picture just does not do it justice.
No.
Being there in person, and it was like, I think about that moment looking across there all the time. I mean, once a week. It was so cool looking. And I felt like an explorer up there. Like and my snow was freezing in my beard. We're trying to take a picture. The wind was just ridiculous. And then all this painful snow, like it was painful just to be out of your truck. But then the view was just absolutely the coolest view. For me personally, coolest view I've ever seen. Everything, counting the birth of my children.
Here, I'm gonna hold a picture up to the camera, so I don't have to upload it on from my phone. But here's a picture of me up there trying to take that picture. We're squinting. We're sitting at a picnic table on top of a mountain, and the wind was ripping. You can see the hood behind me, just full like a sailboat sail. Yeah, that was really good. And I enjoyed the wheeling on that trip a lot because it was the legendary dry powder snow that just exploded when you drove through it. But I do enjoy sitting at camp.
Jeep commercial snow.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna jump in. This is a elk hunting trip. And I took a photo there, and it was a cool trip. I had a lot of fun. It snowed and stuff, but I took a photo there, and Elk Mountain Tents used to, at least, all the time have photo contests for the best photo. And I realized at some point that when I was sitting out around the fire, somebody else was in this big tent that I have, that with the lantern going in there, it's just a silhouette, like a puppet show thing, walked like a shadow puppet. And so I went in there and I put a thermos, just a little below waist high, and held it. And then I waited till somebody started laughing and took a picture. And then every single year when the Elk Mountain Tent does their Facebook photo contest, I send it in multiple times and it gets tons of likes, but I never win.
But you never win. I wonder why.
I think it's a great picture of their tent that really shows how awesome.
Yeah,
and
it does.
It's
like,
a magnum.
Look how tall it is. You can stand up in there.
You can stand in there. It's just a magnum sized tent. And
so much room for activities.
Yeah, it's above average, I would say.
Well above average.
Yeah, it's a great tent. And that's when I was introduced to the hot spring that we went to. And I'll click on these pictures just so people can see. It's just out in the middle of the desert. You can't really find much about it online, or at least you couldn't. It was more hunters that went here. And it's just a beautiful hot spring. And Aaron, here, I want you to look how clear that is.
Yeah.
How beautiful that is.
That's ridiculous how clean that water is.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this was in the middle of hunting season, so it was getting used hard and heavy every night, probably morning, by all the hunters up there camping.
By that guy in that Elk Mountain tent?
he was thinking about going in deep. So I don't know what happened when we went there, and it was basically one of those baths that elephants take in the mud, and rhinos and stuff to get the ticks off.
Well, there were some elephants there bathing in the mud when we were there.
That's for sure. So yeah. I think was a cool camping spot that we had, and it was a really memorable. It was elk hunting, but still a really cool camping trip.
Yeah, good.
So my next one here is our Nevada trip. That first campsite, which is I think it's a DNR campsite where you pay.
The Virgin Valley Hot Springs one?
Yes, Virgin Valley Hot Springs.
Because there it is.
We drove, I want to say, what was that? A 16-hour day for me.
It was a big day.
It was a big day because we did a lot of driving to get there. We rolled up to camp about 8 o'clock, and we went and soaked in those hot springs. They weren't super hot, but they were nice and warm, and it was a nice way to blow off the dust from the road. It was. Mm-hmm. They had their showers too, which I don't think I used.
I did. It was so cold. I did it the next morning, and it was so cold. That water was probably like 75 degrees. That's a cold shower. Yeah.
And then we followed it up with I want to say 2 days later, we did the high desert, whatever, the mountain lakes, where we did that hike up there. And you can't see it from the picture of camp, but just on the other side of my tent is an amazing view of the valley below, because you drive up this steep hill. And
see those rocks? See those rocks in the background of this picture, Ben?
Yeah.
From 2018?
Yeah.
Same spot.
Same spot. Wow, that spot grew up quite a bit over, what was that, 2 years later?
I think it was more than that, but yeah. Was it only 2020?
Yeah, because that was 2022 when we went. I want to say it was 2 years later we did that trip.
Yeah, same campground on top of the mountain. That's at Blue Lakes at I think it's called Blue Lake or Blue Lakes. And then we hiked a mile up from the campground to get to the lakes, and we went skinny dipping in the pitch black.
No, I didn't skinny dip. I wore shorts, but yeah.
Oh,
Rick did.
Was I supposed to keep those on?
Hey man, it's all you. Your free will. It was pitch black.
Yeah. Good
But
thing.
yeah, it was
Good thing Coy didn't have his tent there.
yeah.
You're lucky.
Yeah, it was a fun
Yeah.
trip. I really enjoyed that trip, and I mean, just some phenomenal camp spots along the way. And I mean, even I want to say the next night we did the Steen Mountain Loop, and
Yep.
we found that the wives found that one spot. Another
That was another
great
cool campsite. Coy fell over
right.
backwards in his chair.
No, in
In
someone
a chair,
else's
not
chair.
his chair.
Yeah.
Someone else's chair. Yeah.
I think that was Nathan's chair.
Oh, some
We had,
plastic surgeon.
Oh
we had
no,
ice
that was
cream.
we had ice cream. That actually was
Yeah.
ice cream. That
Yeah. Real ice cream. That was a great trip.
yeah.
My next one here, good memories, is from when I took my LMTV with my other friend who had an LMTV. And we went to my secret camping spot in the Gifford Pinchot. And to get to the campsite, we hooked the trucks together with a tow hitch. That's why they look so close together. So essentially we had 2 engines and 8-wheel drive, but no lockers. And you can see, I mean, it looks like, so those tires are 46-inch tall tires, and the snow is just over halfway up them. So it looks like we're in 2 feet deep where the snow, but when you look at that yield sign is probably 9 feet tall, and only 3 feet of it are sticking out. So that means we're on top of like 4 feet of snow. But we couldn't make it all the way to where we were going, so we doubled back and we camped at my secret spot, and we set up a portable hot tub, and I brought a bunch of buckets with me, and we bucket brigade carried 5 gallons of water at a time from the creek, which was like 35-degree water, and dumped it in this hot tub. And then we started a fire to heat up the water, and it took from like 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night for the water to warm up in this hot tub. And then I didn't think about how big the hot tub was. There was 5 of us camping, and all 5 of us got in this hot tub at the same time, and all of our knees are touching. It's